sim races from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now. Seven days from today, drivers will roll out in Speedway, Indiana for a special race. One that may be just bigger than a championship. Today provides an opportunity to calm the nerves, to head out onto the hollowed grounds and build some momentum. For just the second time, we go racing on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Welcome to the Brickyard and welcome to the Gomez Sim Industries Grand Prix of Indianapolis, presented by Next Level Racing. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined alongside by Ewan O'Leary once again, and don't forget you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing. Let's dive straight into our butt kicker pre-race show because, Ewan, we're here at the Speedway, and in 7 days' time, our second Triple Crown. But today, it is all about going road course racing at what is a new layout of Indianapolis compared to the last time these drivers were here.
Yeah, absolutely. 3 seasons ago was the only time we've seen the Lionheart Retro Series here, when Sage Karam took the victory, leading most of the laps on the way to that win after 48 laps. We're here again in the Lionheart Retro Series anyway. It's very much the time of year to be heading to Indianapolis, not only for the road course but the oval as well, and we know what racing that can provide.
Let's take a look at the Next Level Racing schedule. Already 6 rounds into the books here of this 2023 campaign. And of course, as we head over to Indianapolis, it will build into a almost 3-week gap before we'll head over to the land of the rising sun, just 3 races away from hitting that halfway marker. And what a first half of the season it has been. Homestead Miami, of course, saw us open off the campaign, but Watkins Glen, the first road course, signifying the ever-changing dynamic that these drivers very much have to contend with. 4 very different races to open up the calendar. And as we look at the Next Level Racing driver standings, boy, Ewan, does it still look like it's going to be shaping up to be close at the front, with the top 5 split by less than 50 points.
Absolutely, it is anybody's championship here at this stage, and with most of those top 5 right up there within a couple of tenths of one another in the practice session currently ongoing, we're in for a very, very good race. It's too early to call out of this one, really, you would say, but there's some very good candidates for the win here, so, especially looking at that top 5, as you say, because they can all win on their day. They could all win this championship if they string together a good season as well. So, yeah, it's finally poised at this early stage.
And unlike that, when you look at so many of the Nezumi Graphic LC Badworks cars up inside of the top 10 in the driver standings, they are dominating in this HyperX type team championship, building up a significant advantage to their teammates in the former Nezumi Graphics LC. However, Raven Lavoie Motorsports very much starting to build the gap, and here on a road course they'll be looking to try and press their advantage, with the likes of David Siwa qualifying potentially up there through the field. Unacceptable Racing keeping things close and honest as well, while Backfire Motorsports, 4D Raceware, and then Team Talent all the way back in 7th spot. And what a surprise that is for Team Talent, a team that bring so much experience in open wheel machines, to be down there in the running order. But in this rookie class, it is such a strong class. Yes, Sean Campbell and Phil Kraus will steal the headlines, but we've already seen Dan Zager's podium on debut, and now some of the other drivers starting to build up a little bit more momentum. The likes of the Christopher Hills, the Sam Fontaine, When you get into this sort of a car, Ewan, for the very first time, you're not just learning how it drives, you're learning how it races and how your competitors go as well, and that's why those rookies very much have a strong bar to contend against in the form of Campbell and Krause, but they're starting to stand out.
Yeah, they really are, and they have done from the very start of the season. The rookie standing's a bit misleading, really, when you look at Campbell and Krause, because they've got so much experience in the world of sim racing, the world of iRacing, that they're not rookies in that sense of the word, but they are to this series, and they're absolutely running away with it. As I said in the race I did at Long Beach, either of those two could well be winning the championship overall. We could see a rookie standings and an overall standings winner in the form of one driver here this season, and it could be either of them.
I very much hope not, but I do not think I do not doubt that as a probably likely situation. Here's a look at the Gomez Sim Industries series details in this 7th season of the Lionheart Retro Series, the first where it's really taken center stage here on RaceSpotTV. The 10th year of the Lionheart Racing Series as we campaign a car really designed to go racing around Grand Prix venues around the world. This Lotus 79 pioneering ground effect, however, we show that it can't just turn right, it's very good at just turning left as well. Custom fix setup built by the Majors Garage as the drivers fight for their share of cash and prizes that tot up to $3,600. And don't forget, 7 days away from the second of the Triple Crowns. That's a significant race in and of itself as they run themselves in their quest to try and challenge Mike Razmas as he defends his championship, and Madworks as they try and defend their lineal team championship. Let's talk you through the arena event details as we return to Speedway Indiana, but only for the second time to its road course configuration of the Brickyard. And what domination it was all those years ago when Sage Karam led all but one lap, likely through the pit stop strategy, on his way to victory lane. Who can pick up in his stead? Will anyone be able to dominate? Well, qualifying's just started. We're about to find out, and it's a updated configuration. In my opinion, a slightly better configuration, but Ewan, I know it's still one that you're not necessarily the biggest fan of.
Yeah, they can't work miracles, can they? So they've done all right with what they've got, but yeah, I agree. It's not the best racetrack in the world, and we are going to see what it can provide for us here. As you said, 3 seasons ago, we saw Sage Karam lead most of the laps. Only got 2 lead changes as well around this circuit, which I think says a lot, but there'll be some key zones within it, especially looking forward to seeing the chicane at turns 5 and 6 as well, because you can really vault yourself over there on occasion. You end up side by side through that turn 1 section, and you end up with some very awkward moments. There could be some moves then running down towards turn 7. I wouldn't expect to see too much in that final chicane there in the final sector, but the run is important out of turn 14 there, because the obvious overtaking opportunity will be to turn 1.
I do quite like that we've at least got the heavy braking zone in through not just 13 but 12 as well, because sometimes if you go a bit deep through one, it can set up the other. And even if you're not getting the move done through there, it snowballs all the way into 1, and hopefully another heavy braking zone, another opportunity to get a move done. As mentioned, cars out there on track for qualifying. Before we take a look at them, it's time to thank those that make this possible, starting with HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headset. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt Kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Visit thebuttkicker.com. If you think sim racing is thrilling, try getting behind the wheel of a real race car. The BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thermal, California puts you in the cockpit of one of BMW's fastest cars, complete with roll cage and racing slicks. You'll get fitted with a racing suit, practice pit stops, and lap their track with pro instructors. Nothing virtual about their thrills. To book your BMW M4 GT4 experience, call or visit the links on screen. Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Arena is an all-new esports streaming experience driven by real-time interactions between gamers and their communities. Arena brings live broadcast fan engagement to the next level. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. And finally, graphics. From simple logos to full branding for your company, virtual designs, deliveries race by Indy 500 champions. Graphics offers the finest quality with a wide range of design services. Visit graphicsesports.com to learn more. Qualifying at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, usually a 4-lap affair. Not the case when we roll out for its road course. Well, it is, but not in the same way. We don't average the 4 laps. Instead, drivers get 4 laps to set their fastest flying lap, and currently, out there in terms of times, it is less than half a tenth that splits Phil Krause from Sean Campbell, a 1:16.597, the benchmark to beat.
Yeah, absolutely, and just owing to the amount of time we've spent away from this racetrack in the Lionheart Retro Series, Phil Krause has gone nearly 2 seconds quicker than the lap record we've set in this series previously. There's been a lot changing so far over the recent years, and that is being shown to us right now by Phil Krause. Not a big gap back to Sean Campbell, and over the next 5 minutes, I think it will chop and change just that little bit. As regards to who's on pole, who's in second, and those positions just behind as well.
Let's not forget that the car gets faster, usually the lighter on fuel it is, and so that's why Phil Krause is just going to go and go and go as many flying attempts as he can put down onto the board. Here he comes to the line to complete lap 2 out of the 4 that was mentioned. 1:16.489, we'll see him jump just that little bit clearer of the rest of the field. Let's ride around for the lap into turn 1. Oh, we're not going to get a lap with Phil Krause on lap 3 because he gets a big old slap of oversteer and will bail on this attempt.
Well, that's a great indication of how important turn 1's going to be in the race, because when you think about them doing that in qualifying on their own, what's it going to be like when they're racing side by side and neck down towards there? They're all going to be on the absolute limit, as we've just seen. And when you are dancing this car on the limit, it is very, very fun to watch indeed. And you do get fantastic racing as a result as well. So looking forward to that, but not an ideal way to start your lap. And Krause is going to have that little bit of pressure off now over the next minute or so, and he'll set up for one final attempt, as Jim Herrick might well do as well after a wide run there.
Yeah, we saw that Sean Campbell, by the way, 1:17.4, another one bailing and trying to set up for the final flying attempt. Christopher Hill, no improvement, and we'll set him up for one final attempt. And we'll get a handful more cars that will do the very same. Andrew Wood and Matt Wagner not qualifying. Here's Cristobal Valenzuela, 1:17.6. We'll see him improve by 2/10. Good enough to jump him up to 12. And I get the sense that we are going to see plenty of improvements. The main driver to keep your eye on, though, I think is going to be this one. The only driver within striking distance of Phil Krause, and he will not improve. And so now it's basically Phil Krause's to lose as he sets out for a lap that weakened track, drifts the car out of turns 2 and 3 as he winds out of that opening sector. Just look at him balancing it, trying to get on the power as soon as he can so he can run it into that chicane and carry the momentum to the back straight.
It's such a precarious car when you're dancing on the limit like that. Great car control though through turn 4 especially, to then balance it out through 5 and 6, and in the end it didn't look too out of control, and he does look a little bit more in control of things through this final section now. Turns 8 and 9, sweeping chicane, and then an all-important turn 10. Of course, not as important as it used to be because we have that chicane now before the start-finish line, but even so, it's important. You do have to think a little bit about turn 11 before getting on the brakes to 12, because you could very easily be turning and braking at the same time and then setting yourself up for what is the final corner. Phil Krause is going to just put on a show instead, and he'll celebrate with a pirouette as he gets pole position.
Well, I don't think anyone else is necessarily going to challenge Phil Krause, although Michael O'Brien might have a chance. Now, what we did see with Krause, again, is this new final sector. Even though we shortcut the track in the first sector, we've added a bit onto it at the end. O'Brien is going to run to the line and maybe a driver that could challenge for pole, but not necessarily showing that speed so far through the session so far. It's going to be no improvement for the Nezumi Graphics LC car, and so that is qualifying inside of the top 10 done. Just Hugo Gallus to run to the line.
Yeah, let's see. The exit looks pretty good, pretty calm and poised. Over the line, it's not going to be improvement for Gallers, unfortunately. He'll stay 19th, just ahead of Craig Forsyth, the only driver to qualify below him. We do have a couple of non-qualifiers, though, Arjuna. From the looks of things, might get 22 on the grid here for this round, which is a little bit lower than what we've seen in some recent rounds. But then again, only 18 cars finished on the lead lap when we held this event for the first and only time.
Yeah, mentioned that Andrew Wood and Matt Wagner are the two that seem to be sitting out. Not sure if that's penalty related or just wanting to stay out of trouble. It does mean that we get the next 70 seconds or so to chat amongst ourselves before we'll get down to the grid. The drivers will get set for what is going to, interestingly, be a one-lap affair. The last time we came here, we mentioned Sage Karam led 47 of the 48 laps on his way to HyperX victory lane. We're back here for another 125 miles, another 48 laps. Expectation is we'll see most drivers in probably around lap 25, lap 26, because again, I mentioned it earlier, Ewan, the car is faster, the lighter it is.
Yeah, and you ideally want to limit this race to one stop, which you should be able to do with a fuel window like we're seeing. You could even split it in half, I suppose, with 24 each way, but I understand what you're saying with the light car or whatever, so maybe they will just decide to run it as long as possible. We'll see, though, and we'll see what a bearing it has on the race as well, because typically with one-stop races, they are fairly linear in the way that the strategy works. If it's a close one between the likes of Krause and Campbell and Taylor as well, especially, then maybe it will be interesting to see when they come in and the strategies they employ and whatever. But if it's a runaway leader, like we saw last time we were here, then the strategy won't be all that important for the race win.
What I will suggest is new track configuration leaves plenty of, yes, slow corners, but draft as well. It's a significant factor to come here over what is going to be an intriguing return to Speedway Indiana. Yes, the focus will be on the butt kicker Indy 250, but today it's time to settle some nerves for the Gomez Sim Industries Grand Prix of Indianapolis, presented by Next Level Racing. Let's run you down the starting grid for round 7 in 2023. It's Phil Krause that will once again lead us to the pole position. It is incredibly his second pole in 7 races. He's got Sean Campbell alongside, though, that wants to grab his 6th victory in 13 races. Matt Taylor and David Rodriguez, the Nezumi Graphics LC pair, will line up on row 2. They've got David Sirot and then Mike Razmas, the defending champion, behind them to complete the top 6. Christopher Hill, talked about him being an impressive rookie. Look at him lining up in 7th alongside Alex Guyon as Raven Lavoie Motorsports look to continue their charge in that HyperX team standings. Michael O'Brien's got some work to do back in 9th. He'll charge, hopefully not with the curse, Chris Fowler, who brings some new colours to his number 20. Tyler Graf, along with Cristobal Valenzuela, just miss out on spot inside of the top 10. They've got Richie Hearn, who's got plenty of experience here in the Speedway, in the real world, alongside with Jim Herrick on row 7. Sam Ryman, Seb Alexander, one of our newcomers late to the season, 15th and 16th position, with Gabe Wood, Samuel Fontaine, 17th and 18th. Completing the top 20 in the final cars with times on the board, it's Hugo Gallis and Craig Forsyth. It's Andrew Wood and Matt Wagner, the 2 rookies that will roll behind them. Shotgun at the tail end of the 22 car field. They're getting ready to roll already. They do have a full pace lap to work through. Plenty of opportunity for drivers to build some temperature into their tires. Might be somewhat of a factor that will be important. It gives us plenty of time as well to run you down through today's featured onboard cameras. Let's jump on board first with Sean Campbell, who carries over his nose Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com to learn more. Alongside him, from pole position, Phil Krause carries Next Level Racing. Take your racing to the next level. Visit nextlevelracing.com. It's a little bit further back in the field for Chris Fowler, who rides with Donate Life in the Donate Life number 20. Learn more about organ, eye, and tissue donation and register today at donatelife.net. And last but not least, another one up there in the field. Matt Taylor rides with HyperX. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. It's a field of 22, and we get onboard looks with the entire field of them. And as they work their way on this formation lap, Ewan O'Leary, what are your expectations? What are your nerves right now?
Well, I can imagine the nerves are going to be very, very high indeed going towards turn 1, because it's a really, really tight braking zone. You're almost funneled into there and everybody's going to be going 22 wide pretty much into that corner, and it's going to be, it could have potential to be a real mess in there. So I hope that everybody gets through cleanly, but that's what your mind immediately is going to go to when you're one of these drivers on the grid at the moment.
One-stop race, like you mentioned, sometimes can be a little bit processional. The talking point might come down to tyres and whether we see drivers take them or not. Seemed to be a bit of a split opinion in some of the practice races building up to this. Michael O'Brien, one that maybe we will watch to try and take tyres as he charges from the back. Phil Krause, when I talked to him, was a little bit more hesitant. When we have a little bit more variance when it comes to at least a one-stop in that regard, Ewan, it gives us a little bit more intrigue in how the drivers are going to have to play out both phases of the race as well.
Yeah, it does kind of go against my comment that one-stop races are linear. That only is the case if we don't have the situation, which we probably will have today, where people are changing tyres and what combination of them, which ones are you going to go for, how many are you going to go for. These are all things that you've got to factor in over the course of what is going to be a relatively short race. It's 125 miles, but it won't take these guys very long at all. It's going to take a lot of thinking about, but important calls to be made about halfway through this one.
Probably only an hour of racing, competition, commitment, excitement. We're ready to go in Speedway, Indiana for the first of the double header. It's the Gomez Sim Industry Grand Prix of Indianapolis presented by Next Level Racing that sees Phil Krause holding the field stationary as he waits to see the green flag towards the yard of bricks. Sean Campbell, Matt Taylor and David Rodriguez waiting for the signal as Krause jumps and leads them across the yard of bricks. Great jump at the front of the field. It will leave them a little bit more compromised behind, as Sean Campbell for the most part is going to see no major challenge to his inside. Having said that, Matt Taylor with the sends of all sends leaves Campbell enough space, and they will all find enough room to funnel through turns 1, 2 and 3, and now surely as they get towards that chicane they'll think about getting single file. Taylor slots in front of Campbell, but Krause already 1 second clear.
Yeah, this has immediately helped Krause here, this battle for second place, as Matt Taylor made a great dive down the inside. He's got a car off, it's Tyler Graff in the background there, who's unfortunately come unstuck, but Sean Campbell goes back into second place. It's all playing into the hands of Phil Krause right now, who got off to a wonderful start. As soon as he could see the start-finish line, he went immediately. He's pulled that gap, and the battle for second has only helped him as well.
But Campbell being able to re-establish that spot in second, is he going to be able to now claw back a bit of that deficit, still within drafting range most importantly? Slightly reduced draft, yes, but it will give Campbell every opportunity to try and close up. Tyler Graff not enjoying the best of days, though. He's back off the track, and I think we're going to see him likely head off down to pit lane. The only victim at the end of what predictably was a somewhat tumultuous turn and lap number 1. Field streaks across the line. Still Krause, Campbell, Taylor, Rodriguez and Razmas, the top 5.
Yeah, single file towards turn 1 on this occasion. Krause with a 1.4 second lead. Campbell immediately showing that he may well be stronger than everybody else, because Taylor, Rodriguez, Rasmus and Cyril can't really follow. And by the way, Rasmus has had a pretty good start to, oh dear, Matt Taylor just gets off the line through the chicane and drops to 5th, and it will be worse than that by the time he gets to the next braking zone.
Slots in front of his teammate Michael O'Brien, who will likely, over the voice chat, get the memo and say, we'll work together, we'll see how your car's doing. Nervy moment. One common thing that I heard from some of the drivers was they weren't necessarily feeling the most confident about the car underneath them, and so maybe Taylor just pushing that a little bit too hard. As one driver, Richie Hearn, found his way off and into the grass. Richie Hearn has dropped down to 14th spot, but seems to be still going.
Yeah, he barely found his way back on, by the looks of it. He's dropped a couple of places as a result, but at least he's not gone off the road in too severe of a way, but just a small mistake as he ran out wide out on the exit of turn 10, which is of course an important traction zone. Maybe not as important as this one, as you can see by the fact they're getting right up close to the wall before spitting themselves out onto the front straight, and they're all pretty close here. Hearn is quite close to try and make amends, but won't in towards turn 1 on this occasion, and it will be single file throughout the field.
I do kind of wonder if it's a bit of a draft lock was the word that I had used in conversation before. Wondering if that's the case right now. Let's take a look at what happened on lap number 1 with Tyler Graff in through turn 4 as he tries to get to the inside of one of those big green machines, goes around, and a bit of drama as a couple of cars also lost some bodywork. Richie Hearn's recovery continues, by the way. He's gone and past Sam Ryman, so it is possible to make up spots. Hearn now up to 13th.
Yeah, he is indeed. I'm going to have a stab in the dark, by the way, that it was Gabe Wood he was trying to find his way down the inside of Tyler Graf, but it's almost impossible to identify, to be honest, in the midst of all the madness. Just one of those unlucky moments, really, and if it's going to be anywhere, then, well, if it's not going to be turn 1, then it's going to be anywhere, then it's going to be turn 4, you'd imagine, on the opening lap. It's such a tight opening sector, and it's such a difficult corner when you're on your own.
I think it was Chris 22 Fowler,
cars
actually,
through
by
there.
the way. Sorry, just totally random. But
right.
The problem is there's plenty of new liveries, and you've heard my complaints about how people have to make things easier for commentators. P-Brain commentators often have to try and remember new liveries.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to guess it from the livery anyway, to be fair, but I was just having a go. Oh, that's way too late on the brakes from Fontaine as he tried to go down the inside towards turn 1, and it'll be side by side in towards the infamous turn 4 again, but somehow he's made it work. I think he's gotten away quite lightly there with 14th position.
And as they funnel through, it's checked them up behind. Seb Alexander, Jim Herrick, just about get through side by side out of turns 5 and 6. Hugo Gallus now is going to try and take opportunities, though, in that Backfire Motorsports number 57. He's up the inside. They'll go 3 wide because Forsyth missed the braking zone. He'll tag Gallus, who will go around off into the grass. 3 into 1. It never works out.
No, it certainly doesn't, and I don't think Gallus fully realised there in time that they were 3 wide by the way that he turned in to that corner. He was certainly giving enough space for 1, but maybe not for 2 down the inside, and I don't think he had much reason to expect that there would be 2 cars down his inside either, to be fair to him. So an awkward moment, really, and once again I'll reiterate as well, I don't think the driver in behind meant to go through the middle and make it 3 wide. I think just broke at the normal point and found it was later than those in front, and just sort of find yourself in the middle of the road there, which is an awkward place to be.
Let's take a look at what happened with Matt Taylor, because I think we are going to see just how difficult. We get the tail end of it here, but it's a high commitment fast chicane that was added. At least it removed the awful double hairpins that were, yes, awful. Nothing redeeming about them.
He's downshifted there. I'm sure I heard him downshift through the middle of the corner.
Oh, let's listen in, 1 sec. You're right.
What has he done that for?
Does he accidentally hook the paddle in the act of turning? I guess that's one way of looking at it. Here's that 3 wide, by the way, that I mentioned earlier, or that you said. What were you saying? I couldn't quite.
You've gotten already.
Were you trying to say that Forsyth didn't come out of nowhere?
I don't think he meant to do this.
Oh, I agree. I do. But I don't think that removes any culpability from his shoulders.
I'm not saying it does, but I'm just saying I don't think there was intention in there. But I do think he's still done something wrong. And I was also saying that I don't think Gallus was quite expecting there to be 3 or 2 on his inside. Nor should be expected to, but even so, I don't think he was expecting that quite.
They're all slipping over at the back, by the way, because Andrew Wood has slipped up, and now just maybe in sympathy, as they don't really do much interesting at the field, starting to break away a little bit. Sean Campbell, Phil Krause, 2nd and 1st. There's Gabe Wood, to correctly identify him in the white and yellow, who, well, gets T-boned by a car that had absolutely nowhere to go. Might have been Richie Hearn again.
Was it? Was that an earlier replay of Gallus, maybe, was it?
No, I think...
Oh, no, he's just in front. I don't know.
Liveries are confusing, I'm telling you. Richie.
Oh, I don't.
It's definitely
know what
Richie.
Looks like. Anyway, yes. Of these, he might get in trouble for that Wood, really, because you don't want to spin right in front of someone like that when you are in full control of the vehicle, really. I know he's gone around, but he's still in control there, and he still has the ability to not try and hook it around straight in front of another driver there, so he could land himself in some trouble for that.
We'll wait and see. Live Race Control might also take a look at that, so if Gabe Wood's out there continuing, which I don't know if Richie Hearn's going to be in a state to be able to do so, because he continues to have various issues. We'll track that. Meanwhile, within 2 seconds, still at the front, yes, Phil Krause being kept honest by Sean Campbell. Here's David Rodriguez, who has got 3rd position. Defending champion Mike Razmas tucked in behind. David Sirois in 5th position. Train goes back, though. Christopher Hill, Matt Taylor, Michael O'Brien. It's 3rd to 8th that work through in the peloton.
if we want to go down that analogy. Yeah, it's
I knew you'd like
a big
it.
group, and yeah, I'm just wary of those that don't really get it. But anyway, they'll have to deal with it. It's the battle I think that's going to be most interesting actually in this race, because I think the two leaders are going to have such a hot lap battle out front that we're not going to see them battle that much, if we do at all. So this one for third place is going to be entertaining, I think, and David Rodriguez is going to have quite the job to hold everybody back at the moment, because he's got some very fast drivers behind him, and they're not going to go away.
Trying to think, for David Rodriguez, has had 2 victories in his career, but both on ovals, and one, I will remind everyone, came courtesy of magic fuel saving. He is still under investigation for what happened back in late 2021, but I don't recall him necessarily running that well on any road courses necessarily. Best finish this season, 8th at Pocono. See how he deals with this sort of pressure. We'll go back to what we were talking about with the track map, by the way, Ewan. You're not necessarily a fan of this roval at this Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but I think we're both on the same page that there aren't many good rovals, period.
Not to drive on, no. This is the distinction we were making earlier on, that to drive on, rovals generally aren't that interesting. There are some good ones to race at. I know some would put this circuit in that category. I'm not quite sold on it, to be honest, in terms of racing at it, but we certainly put Daytona into the good races at a roval category, and I'm sure you might be able to think of some others as well. Don't mind Charlotte too much either, but yes, there aren't too many really, and this is one of them.
Did you think Charlotte was better with the fast chicane or with its slower chicane?
With the chaos fast chicane, for sure, yeah.
On the same page there. We might get some chaos, I feel, in this fight for third, because while I don't think your opinion that this is not the best track in the world is going to be that controversial, slipstream is so important, but if they're all basically getting locked down in this draft, are they going to think about doing something in terms of fuel? Is that the way it's going to go? David Silva really closed up under the brakes there. It's clearly possible to make moves, but you're waiting for mistakes, something that may very well come more in the second half of the race, where some drivers are potentially going to gamble and not take any tires, which curious how that's going to play out for them, given that it's 50 degrees Celsius and only getting warmer on the track itself. Move to the inside by Razmas as he goes for third.
Well, it's very late on the brakes. If he's pulled that up, he's done well, and he has done. Rodriguez didn't challenge him at all in towards turn 7, but as he said, is he just wanting almost Razmas to go through so that he can begin drafting off and he can begin the fuel saving a little bit? And are those games beginning at the moment? Because we've got, 5-6 drivers involved here. Matt Taylor, just behind Michael O'Brien, who we're riding on board with here, is involved as well. So we'll call it a 6-car train, and everybody behind the leader is benefiting from a bit of fuel saving. And maybe that's what Rodriguez was thinking about as they broke a bit early into turn 7.
Great view from the pagoda as Rodriguez a little bit too far back in towards turn 1. Seems like he's better in the first sector, and Razmas, excuse me, other way around. Rodriguez was a little better in the first sector, Razmas better in the final sector. O'Brien and Hill are going to duke it out slightly further behind. Contact made as O'Brien hangs the rear end out, and one ends up in the wall. It's the 45. Somehow, I think Christopher Hill's going to get away with that one.
Maybe, but I can't believe O'Brien's been missed by everybody as well, because Guyon and Fowler were both coming through at the same time. And here's the contact. They get hooked together, and then they're both passengers really end off in the wall. Michael O'Brien's lost some of his front wing, and that's the end of his day. He's returned back to the pit lane, the second place man in the point standings, out of this race.
You look from up above initially, and he was already he's sliding, and the problem is when he's that loose, he can't really drive the car out to the wall like he initially would have wanted to, because he's so concerned with just keeping the rear end at least under some sort of control. And so Christopher Hill maybe thought that he had a bit more space, but O'Brien did not have the control to afford him that room. And 10 laps in, O'Brien returns to the pit lane, joins Richie Hearn and Tyler Graf in likely being done for the day.
Yeah, quite possibly. And in my opinion, that's just nothing more than an unlucky racing incident from what I saw there. I didn't see anything that anyone should be punished for, in my opinion. But we'll wait and see what happens there. It does seem that Hill has gotten away with it in terms of damage. I was very surprised that he had done, actually, but I think he has, and doesn't seem to be visibly damaged by that incident, and he's continuing on. He has lost quite a few places, down in 7th now, and he's probably going to come under pressure from Guyon and Fowler, but he's a lot better than it could have been.
I guess the question is, no, right side looks good as well, because that's really where the contact ended up being. I was wondering if there would have been any crinkling there. It's maybe the confidence that gets a little bit jolted. Tires also will be slightly scorching. iRacing is known for being slightly sensitive, so keep that in mind. 3 positions gained for Razmas to the podium, by the way, but 6 for Fontaine, 5 for Forsyth. Handful of big movers out there. Michael O'Brien in the YouTube chat, by the way, says, well, did that pretty poorly. He seems like he's pretty much taking the blame squarely on himself.
Well, yeah, well, I don't know whether he means himself there, or whether he's calling out someone else. But no, I won't jump to conclusions there, because that would be rude. But yeah, he'll be disappointed for sure, because after all, it's a pretty big moment, isn't it? He's only 19 points off of Sean Campbell at the top of the standings at the moment. It'd be a big hit for him, this one, because most of his rivals are doing very well. Campbell, Rasmus and Kraus are all in the top 5 in the points, and they're all on the podium at the moment.
Michael O'Brien, by the way, 10 pole positions in his Lionheart career. For him to be qualifying down in 9th, maybe just shows that he was one of those that was not necessarily the most comfortable with the fixed setup that they're dealing with. They only have effectively themselves, their hands, their feet, to work around whatever discomfort they have, and they can't ask for a dial of wing here, or increase in tire pressures there. It's just go out there and deal with what you have. Rodriguez settles into line, so qualified in 4th, continues to run quite well. Leaders have been slightly compressed. It's within 1.6 seconds now as Phil Kraus and Sean Campbell ride.
It's going to be such a sweaty hot lap session, isn't it, that between these two. Kraus and Campbell are absolutely at the top of their game. They're driving really well so far, about a quarter of the way through the race, and Campbell is going to be chasing down Kraus all day long. The concentration levels between the two going to be an absolute maximum throughout the entirety of the hour and a bit we'll be racing here this evening, and I hope we get the grandstand finale in the battle, at least between the two of them as well, because they're going to be playing for high stakes, certainly, and it would be wonderful to see, but let's see if we get there.
Here's the 4 cars still running for 3rd, by the way. They have plenty of separation back to Christopher Hill. David Rodriguez a little bit deep on that back straightaway. Will compromise it slightly. These are the curbs that you can run over, by the way, including here as you head into that final sector, but there are some curbs, especially in that last couple of corners, are definitely one to watch. Michael O'Brien's crash analysis. That was 90% on him. He could have left a little bit room, he guessed, but O'Brien would have been good if he wasn't sideways. That's the main thing. If you're not sideways, I guess you're in control of your car. That's what they tell me.
It wouldn't save you from every situation, but from that one, yeah, I agree. So yeah, I think we can chalk that down to a racing incident, in my opinion. And I don't think either party would be too mad about it. And he did also mention, to your point that you said earlier on about qualifying, that he did qualify low down and got impatient, gave himself a lot of work to do, and all of that is true, because he has taken a lot of poles in the past, but qualified down in 9th today. Had to do a lot of overtaking to even get where he was, and to get where he wanted to be on the podium, he would have to do even more. So yeah, made life pretty difficult for himself throughout that qualifying session, unfortunately.
I think you'll find I said both parts of his analysis, because not only did I say that he blew quali a little bit relative to where we might usually expect to see him, but I also said that he was sideways and therefore couldn't really go out and track out as much as possible. See, sometimes, once in a blue moon, a broken clock is right twice a day. I've got one of my 2 things right for the day.
And one of them is not saying that pun in the correct
Oh
words.
no, I've got so much wrong today. You can clearly tell that my day started by waking up 7 o'clock in the morning and seeing in my work Slack, why is this broken? Can someone take a look? And it just snowballed from there.
One of those days.
It was actually a fun day. It doesn't mean that my brain isn't completely scrambled and fried. I'm sure these drivers are going to be pretty scrambled and fried at the end of this, because one stop, an hour race, it's pretty relentless, all things considered. And you mentioned slightly smaller field than we had even at Long Beach a handful of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, even at this stage, we have less people in the race, I think. But you get the point. It's slightly reduced field. You mentioned the mental effort here. I referenced it with Kraus and Campbell, but it's going to be the same for everyone, isn't it? It's just because those two are at the front of the field, it almost you sometimes in your head think, well, they must be most mentally drained, but it will be everybody at the end of this one, because it's such a flat-out race from start to finish, and these cars aren't exactly cars that you can just relax and drive. They're not GT3s in the middle of an endurance where you're almost sleepwalking your way through the night. You know, you're on edge, up on the wheel all day long here.
You don't really race here at the night, at least just yet. They did their first ever race into the sunset with, said GT3 cars. They were GT3 cars, 8 hours at Indianapolis. IMSA's heading here this year for 2.4 hours, hopefully for a bit longer in the future as well, because they've already said that infield camping will be a thing, which is going to be very, very intriguing. But I think even more importantly, they've already teased that they want to make it part of the Michelin Endurance Cup. We're focused, though, on our trip to Speedway Indiana and the first of the doubleheader. First, the Grand Prix in 7 days, the Triple Crown. Not even halfway through, but Phil Krause and Sean Campbell more than 10 seconds clear of the chasing pack behind. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with the run to the checkered flag on RaceSpotTV. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. We're live from the Speedway, round 7. Gomez Sim Industries Grand Prix of Indianapolis, presented by Next Level Racing. It's Phil Krause and Sean Campbell that continue to streak away at the front of the field as we edge closer and closer to pit stop windows. Don't forget, you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing as you join our Junior Kenki party alongside with Ewan O'Leary. Ewan, you mentioned mental focus and the effort that it's going to take for Phil Krause and Sean Campbell, trading laps back and forth, pushing each other as hard as they can. They are half a second quicker than the rest of the field.
Yeah, head and shoulders above the rest, and the battle is going to be between them. Even if we get an on-track battle, the phase through the pit stops will be important as well, because just under a 2-second gap is not something you can rely on. Just as I say that, Sean Campbell makes a mistake in towards turn 1, maybe losing that mental focus for just a brief moment.
It's so easy in these Lotus 79s to break the traction as you demand too much even of those large, chunky rear tires. Don't forget, it's not just fights back at the front. You look further back through the field, and while David Rodriguez has slightly been dropped by Mike Rasmussen, yes, still holds on to 4th. He's got Sirwa, he's got Taylor behind as well. Let's not forget Taylor qualified up there in 3rd. He's trying to charge his way back up through the field. Still unsure how many of these drivers are going to take tires, how many of them are going to decide, you know, let's gamble without tires and see what we can do to the end of the race. We showed those track temperature earlier, let's highlight them again. 48 degrees Celsius, Ewan. It doesn't get much toastier than that.
Yeah, very, very warm. And in sim at the moment, we're only in the sort of middle of spring kind of time. Not even summertime yet, but getting very, very hot on these tyres. So maybe that will push people towards changing 1 or 2 of them at the pit stops. Of course, we'll try and keep an eye on that as best as we can, but it is going to be hard to tell. And we'll see who comes out the other side better for it. But this is the kind of race distance where these drivers will have been able to test that kind of thing. They'll know the best tyre strategy to go forward with this race in these kind of temperatures. Because of the distance, you can test out a race distance realistically. So these drivers will know what they're doing, and I'd imagine there's probably limited changing on the fly here, even despite those high temperatures.
You can see that awful double hairpin section still off there to the left. We haven't destroyed it just yet, but hopefully soon. You can see the golf course off to the other side of that back straightaway, by the way. Delightful little golf course. It's very special when you drive under the tunnel because you have to drive under the speedway to get to the golf course, Ewan.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the golf shot. I was like, what the hell? That's weird.
That is also a very cool golf shot. But when you go into the tunnel, it's got this fancy little screen on the golf cart. It's the fanciest golf cart I've ever seen. But it warns you that the speed limit is 240 miles an hour, so you should be careful.
Okay, that's quite clever.
Genius, isn't it?
I should hope it's the fanciest golf cart you've ever driven, by the way, because I've seen how much it costs.
To be fair,
good for you anyway. So.
To be fair, you've seen how much it costs. Yeah. You'll pay 3-4 times as much of that to play at other courses, and that doesn't include your hotel stay, which sometimes is even more than that. Yes, golf is expensive. It really is.
And ridiculous as well, by the way.
It's ridiculously fun, excuse you.
No, it isn't.
Do you want me to clip this and send it the way of Lewis McLeod?
Yeah, you can if you want. That's absolutely fine.
You'll be in trouble.
But yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
It's not a position I'm unused to, so that's okay. But yeah, it's yeah. You can't even encourage me to go to the driving range, to be honest, because it's yeah, I don't get it personally. But there we are.
Well, unfortunately, because of how his race ended, we don't get to talk about our arena driver profile, but let's quickly chat about Tyler Graf. 42 starts, 18 top 10s, 5 top 5s. Still searching for his first victory, although he has been able to work his way to the front in qualifying. Got second back at Nashville last year. Someone that is so integral to the series, doing all the graphics work, series logo, race logos, social media graphics. If you see anything related to Lionheart, it's likely come out of the works of Graphics Esports. So make sure, again, graphicesports.com to learn a little bit more. You said mistake for Sean Campbell. Now they're dealing with some traffic as well, and the margin up to 2.2 seconds momentarily.
Yeah, so Kraus was really under fire from Campbell initially when Campbell got through into second place, but he's weathered this storm and now he's beginning to push on a little bit. Last lap of 16.3 from Kraus. It was his best lap of the race so far, but Campbell responded with his best lap of the race so far as well. But the purple lap and the new fastest lap in the race overall will go to Kraus by about half a tenth of a second. So yeah, it's just going the way of Kraus at the moment as the fuel loads just dip. The gap extends to 2.3.
Is Kraus going for tyres? Is Campbell going for tyres? That is the question. Great thing about being in the virtual world is, even though, yes, in the real world you can go down to the paddock and say, oh, what's your plan? What are you thinking? In the virtual world, I can just send them a Discord message, and they're usually already on Discord getting ready with their teammates and whatnot. Phil Kraus, again, by the way, fastest lap of the race, 16.299. That is within 1,000th of a second of his previous lap time. It shows the consistency that he has. I'll go back to what you said earlier, though, Ewan. The level of mental focus this takes cannot be understated.
No, it really can't. And if you think about the concentration levels and just what you've got to do to make sure that your concentration doesn't wander, that's often the problem that people find, is that they start thinking about other things, about whatever it is that's going on that day or whatever. You start thinking about that kind of thing, but Kraus is absolutely locked in at the moment. He's in the zone, and sometimes you get like this, especially with race leaders. Almost nothing else is going on around them. It's as if the world is literally just them on their own in this world. They're sort of in this state where they're just eyes forward. Every corner's flowing into the next. They're just gliding across the surface. It's absolutely wonderful when you find yourself in this position. And, you know, Kraus seems to be in that at the moment because, as you say, 1,000ths quicker than his previous lap. We'll see what the lap time is on this occasion, but you'd imagine it's very, very close to that previous lap time.
No, it's not. It's even faster.
Oh.
It's a 1:16.198. He's coming up on his teammate Andrew Wood, by the way, who was going to be the sixth car to go one lap down in 17th spot. Sean Campbell did do a 1:16.304, but still lost a tenth of a second at the line, all things considered. This is one of those drives from Phil Kraus reminiscent of his 2022 Lionheart Open Wheel Series campaign where he didn't finish off the podium in a calendar year. Ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. You've got to think about where he's come from in this championship, though. It's not been the greatest start for him in this one. Only 3 top 5s, only 3 top 10s, in fact, which is fairly low. A 50% top 10 rate for Phil Kraus is quite low. Really, so it's good to see him back on top now, and he is 5th in the standings, so does need this kind of result really to really get back in the championship race. And unfortunately for him, his nearest rival Sean Campbell is right behind him, minimising that damage.
Andrew Wood, I think, peeled off to pit lane, so he's said, no more please, I don't want to get in the way of my teammate. I think the gap's going to grow even further at the line. We track that in set. We also watch as David Rodriguez under fire increasingly as he has lost the draft of Mike Rasmus. 1:16.126. It's not fair. David Siwa says, take me to pit lane, please, because I'm losing too much time behind Rodriguez and Rasmus. 24 laps into it. We get one driver pitting in from the top 5.
Yeah, so he's going to split this race in half. Now, this alludes to what you were saying earlier on about fuel loads. He's probably not out of fuel at the moment, and so those out there on the circuit can probably maximise that and maybe come out even further ahead of him. But clearly, Sirois doesn't want to be in that section. Oh, sorry, he's stuck behind for any longer. He'll trundle instead down the exceedingly long pit lane you get here. It
is very, very long.
Look at it.
Despite that,
still not there.
They still manage to find issues. He's going to hit his marks relatively quickly, but that's the thing I was curious about. He will go up on the Jackson. I would guess, given the rather abbreviated nature of the stop, that was likely 2, might have been 4 tires, but now you are at a slight disadvantage. Phil Kraus comes in at the end of lap 25. He bails early. Sean Campbell comes in with him. 2 drivers that we know for sure we're not saving any fuel. Mike Rasmus has been hustling the number 1 machine. He's another one diving off to the lane.
Yeah, this is by no means early, by the way. The fuel stint expected to be 25 to 26 laps. It's pretty narrow as to what he can do, although Rodriguez has carried on. He will, well, I'm not sure if he'll be credited with leading that lap, actually.
Nope.
But he might well lead the next one because of, again, how long the pit lane is. Matt Taylor will be there as well, hoping to lead that lap, but he's got a very familiar feel to this one, to the race we had in Season 4, where we had 1 lead change throughout the pit stop phase and then another one as it changed back.
Oh, but Phil Kraus not up on the jack, Sean Campbell was. So we are going to get some intrigue, and as they roll away from pit lane, keep an eye, yes, on Taylor and Rodriguez if they're going to squabble into 7. What's the margin going to be, though, effectively, as they as your net race leaders head off of the lane, closer to 3.2 seconds, even though they were identical in their time from cone to cone in pit lane.
Yeah, oh dear, we've had Fowler actually off in the first sector, by the way, to just split these two as of right now. But Campbell was really struggling towards the end of that stint there as he got on low fuel. He really wasn't with it. Now he's weaving a little bit to try and get some temperature in the tyres. He's, 3 seconds away, and that was about the gap that he was off of Kraus on the way in there. So nothing has really changed through the pit stop phase there, apart from the tyre change, of course. That's going to be to note. That was close for Matt Taylor.
I think it was Rodriguez that locked up the tyres, actually.
Sure?
And, well, fortunately for the both of them, no black flags for speeding, so they'll be at least grateful about that. Chris Fowler is going to get out of Dodge, and so Sean Campbell will be released. It's going to be interesting if he does have the tyres underneath him to play it out. Very quick look at a couple of replays, starting with what happened with Alex Guyon as he, I think, tried to head down to pit. I'm not sure if that was an attempted pit stop entry or not. All I know is it didn't end nicely. What's happened to Chris Fowler? Was he cursed? That's not ideal, that's for sure.
There's a weird bobble over the grass as well there. There's a bit of a ramp there, isn't there, off the side of the road. If you find yourself off there, you'll find yourself generally going miles off, by the way. As I'm sure everybody watching this, if you've driven this circuit, has experienced that. Just when you're trying to open up turn 4 as much as possible, you find yourself in the grass, and then things going very wrong very quickly. Rasmus has gotten out in 3rd place, and the pit stops have really changed this battle. He's miles in front, 2 seconds in fact in front, and Sirwa with the early stop has come out miles behind, as I kind of thought he would.
Rasmus and Rodriguez, actually, I think that margin holds pretty constant around the 2-second buffer. Not sure what the difference is in terms of tyres versus no tyres. That's the thing where I think we are going to track, but like Ewan mentions, for sure, David Sirwa, the biggest loser after attempting a bit of an undercut. We saw what happened, by the way, to Fowler and Guyon. Let's try and pick up what happened to Matt Wagner in that number 2 machine, heading in through that first sector as well. Just a bit too much speed on entry, it would seem, never really near the apex, and another one to loop it around in front of a Raven Lavoie Motorsports entry. What happened then later on to the very same 2 car, and Sam Fontaine, I think, is going to be tangled up with this as well. 1 car runs wide, and I think Fontaine in sympathy did the same.
Oh, and he went even further, actually, and just spun as he tried to get that, what is the pit lane exit road for the oval. Yeah, he's just... What has he done there?
I think they both forgot how fast they need to enter the corner.
That was really odd from what I could see there. Especially odd. Just seemed to accelerate straight forward through the middle of the road, not opening up turn 10 at all, not turning in at the right point. It's all very concerning, very weird, but yeah, they're both still in the race at least, but I can't quite explain that really.
Some things are unexplainable. Michael O'Brien does think that fresh tyres aren't bad here though, so 3 seconds is the margin. 1 second therefore the disadvantage that Sean Campbell got off of pit road, and now has a little bit more lap traffic to play with as well, and it's not 1 or 2 cars. Phil Krause has got 3 different slower machines to work through, Forsyth included amongst them. This might very much be an opportunity for A, Krause to break away, or B, Campbell to close up.
Yep, we'll see. Campbell, I don't think we'll be able to catch up too much really with the way this opening part of the stint has gone. If I'm honest with you, it's not looking too promising for him, but it's early. You
know, the worst thing with Sean Campbell is he's one of those people that likes to type while he drives. He's just jumped into YouTube to say he hates to spoil the fun. He's not trying to catch.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that's what I say. If he's listening to us, can we egg him on a little bit?
I know it doesn't make sense for his championship because he is leading and his rivals are mostly behind him, apart from Krause, of course, who he's losing minimal points to. But go on, have a go.
I think we have to... box Sean Campbell, clearly. Find him 50 championship points.
Yeah.
For finishing second, not first.
He'll be rapidly sliding down RaceSpotTV's favourite drivers list.
That's not true. Because he is the soon-to-be recipient of a RaceSpot jersey, courtesy of winning RaceSpot Predictor this past weekend for the iRacing 6 Hours of the Glen. So he's therefore implicitly our favourite until the next special.
He's going to have one before me. Jesus.
Well, that's your fault, though.
That is kind of my fault.
You've been part of the team for a while.
2 years, yeah.
Gap's under 3 seconds, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, as he said, he's not trying to catch at the moment. But in the same vein, though, are we supposing that if he gets there, he's not going to go for the win? I mean, absolutely not. So, you know, if Kraus gets caught up in traffic or whatever, and this gap starts to come down, then you do never know.
So, to your point earlier about Phil Kraus maybe not having the best start to the season, he did win the first race, but after that, it has not been very consistent for a driver that has been the bane of consistency in other series. What I would say to Sean Campbell is, are you really going to let Phil Kraus, who's already had a few bad rounds, bank some points that he knows he can accumulate and not worry about drop weeks in a championship that is not 18 rounds like it was in 2022, but 22 rounds in 2023? Traffic, like I said, going to be a big factor. It's down to 2.5.
Yeah, it certainly is, but Campbell's got to come through the same traffic, of course. There's two cars battling indeed. It's Herrick and Forsyth, I think, who have just gone a lap down, and they're fighting for 12th position at the moment. We'll see if there's a bit of side-by-side, but if there is, it will really stall Campbell. There isn't, so he should be all right, but even so, he might just be held up by this. But he has gained so far. It's down to about 2.5.
He said all right, fine in YouTube. I don't know if that means he's actually going to go for it. Do we need to peer pressure him some more?
I'm hoping so. He's going to get a bit of benefit from slipstream, isn't he, now, from Forsyth, and we're going to see Herrick stay in front of him for a little bit longer, but he's dealt with the traffic, or the traffic has been kinder on him, depending on which way you look at it, just a little bit through this next section, but there is quite a way to go before they reach the next part of traffic.
He got really close in through the S's to the back of the final bit of traffic, and fortunately, Jim Herrick moved aside and the gap held relatively constant, 2.7. So there's a couple of tenths being shaved off there. But Phil Kraus, A, still holds the fastest lap. B, still has the race lead. And now with no traffic up the road until Sam Ryman, who with 18 laps to run, based on his lap times, well, might not actually be a consideration for your race leaders. It means for the moment, we can take a look at Jim Herrick and Craig Forsyth, the teammates, as they head off into turn one once again.
Let's see, down in towards turn one. Looks like Forsyth has been fairly careful so far, actually, and has decided not to go for it. And Herrick will just stay in front. And yes, that position will remain the case through turns 1, 2 and 3. Don't get too wide over that curve, though, Herrick, and he has gone wide now through turn 4, and that's one of the easier passes that Forsyth will have to make, and Fontaine is going to close in as well.
It's 440 sim racewear cars in a row, by the way, 11th through 14th position. Just through attrition, they look like they may do quite well, although Jim Herrick almost got ran into by his teammate Sam Fontaine there as they headed into the braking zone at turn 7. Just about got that figured out in time. What's that rule number 1 in racing, Ewan? Don't hit your teammate? Yeah,
don't hit your teammate. And rule number 2 is C rule number 1.
Exactly, yes.
So yes, it's an awkward moment, an awkward debrief if that was to happen, but Fontaine thankfully just pulled up just in time and made sure that that wasn't the case. Gap down to hovering over just over 2 seconds actually over the course of that lap actually, but back out to 2.5 now. And by the way, as we've seen in the YouTube chat actually, people are saying this already, are we going to gloss over the fact how deranged it is that Campbell's driving at this pace and hit the YouTube chat? Well, that comment has fallen apart quite quickly because Sean Campbell makes a mistake in towards turn 1, locks up, and the gap has nearly doubled.
At least you know he was actually going for it for a bit. Uncharacteristic mistake from Sean Campbell, the man that drives in a room of many office chairs traditionally, also potentially a Nicolas Cage or two. Man of international mystery, 3.8 seconds, so he's got to close another second to be back to where he was, and tyres seemingly also very much up to temperature. That's a nice way of putting it, right?
Maybe over the temperature, to be fair. Yeah, well, they certainly will be now. You've got to remember how the new tyres are going to be affecting Campbell, of course, because I don't believe, or we didn't see Kraus go up on the tracks, did we? So we're going to assume that he didn't. And we'll see how that affects things, really, but it is hard to tell.
He's already told us, by the way, that it was a misshift, so we're going to have to go back and listen in on the replay to that misshift. But he's not paying enough attention if he was able to tell us that it was a misshift.
How was he able to type that on that short straight, by the way? I thought he was just doing it on the main home straight, but clearly not. This is just trying to listen to what happened. It just sounded like he broke too late to me.
Sounded fine. Listen again. Wonderful engine, by the way. 1, 2. He's down 3 gears. Does he expect to be down another?
He's quite low in the rev range there, but you do generally, in these older cars, you don't generally want to be quite as, you don't treat this car on downshifts like a modern car, or well, gearing generally.
No, definitely not.
You don't treat it like a modern car, so the revs were quite low there, but that could have been a whole different conversation. The revs were quite low there, but that might not be unusual at that particular point of the circuit, because, as I say, it doesn't behave like a modern car in the gearbox. So,
well,
I didn't see anything different with that.
I don't either. I just think maybe he went too deep.
Yeah, same.
In the act of pushing. Let's pick up, by the way, what happened with Jim Herrick, who went around. Whoa. Sam Fontaine probably had a pretty good view of that, so let's check out the view from the 22 machine, the all-white 40 machine with those slight highlights, black, grey, blue around the side. Oh, it's grass on the left. That's what happened.
We've all done it. To be fair, in these cars, it's a little bit more helpful because you don't get miles off in the grass, because these cars are so on the edge anyway that they only need that one interruption to go into a full 360, and so you don't actually end up that far off the road. But in some more understeery cars, and in some more modern cars, you clip the grass there and you just go straight. You end up in the gravel and you're fishing yourself out of there for ages. So it's a really frustrating corner in that respect, because there is a point where you get to the point of no return and there's nothing you can do about it.
Just like admiring this view from the pagoda. It's a pretty great view. Nice up there in air conditioning as well. For the 2nd consecutive year, Indianapolis in May was quite warm. I can confirm that these weather conditions that we're seeing in sim pretty close to what was experienced in the month of May by all those out there competing and viewing as well. Back up with Rodriguez and Taylor. Have not seen them swap around just yet, but Rodriguez now 2.4 adrift from Razmas. Still feels the pressure, but it's someone that has been through a lot in Lionheart retro competition, indeed in cross of Lionheart competition as well. Matt Taylor again tied for the championship lead at the end of 2021. It was on countback that he lost out to Aaron Morgan.
The most heartbreaking way to lose a championship, certainly. Not that I've ever done it, actually, but even so, it's very, very disappointing indeed. Looking to make amends for that this season, I suppose. 3rd in the points at the moment, only 29 behind Campbell. And could do with a few more over Rasmus as well here, because these two are only separated by 1 point coming into today. They're separated by only a few seconds on the road. It'll be Taylor trying to go through on Rodriguez here, and surely into turn 7 he'll have this one.
Not going to be too hard, I think, if Rodriguez is playing the long game, and indeed more focused on the fact that David Siro's closing 2 seconds behind now. Rodriguez, after qualifying so well, will want to try and hold on to that position. It's 3.3 seconds if you're keeping track at the front between Phil Krause and Sean Campbell. That one mistake, it cost Campbell, but he is within 12 laps of the finish of the race. And again, Phil Krause surely going to be a little bit concerned about how worn his tires are after not taking rubber in the pit stop. Sean Campbell electing to swap that around, and as you pointed out, Ewan, he got rather aggressive trying to warm those tires up on the outlap.
Yeah, and it does make you wonder which is the better call here. You know, is the tyre warm-up going to cost you a lot of time? Is the benefit you get from new tyres a bit better? Michael O'Brien early on certainly seemed to think that it was beneficial to change those tyres, and I'll take his word for it, to be fair. But at the moment, Campbell's mistake is really costing him, because look at the way he's closing that gap again. I'm not sure whether Kraus is just taking his foot off the gas a little bit, whether he's saying, you know, I'm all right for the moment. I don't need to be right on the edge right now as I was earlier because Campbell's so far away. Or is Campbell just quicker at this stage? And without that mistake, could he be, you know, a second and a half away at the moment to set up a nail-biting finish?
It's 3 seconds, that margin. Will come 11 to go. There will be more traffic. Sam Ryman then, if they get to Alex Guyon, that will likely be it. We'll see how it all plays out. Craig Forsyth, another one to have had a spill. 40 racewear cars, yes, taking advantage of attrition, and it's a good thing that there's plenty of it. I think Phil Kraus is going to be credited with leading all but one lap, and that is not the one that he actually pitted on. It would be the one after, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we saw them over the line for the one that he led from the pit lane, so we know that he led that one, and I think... Who was it? Was it Rodriguez, I think, who was at the front?
Yes.
Just ahead of Taylor, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So, once again, we're having a very similar situation. Exactly the same pattern happened back in Season 4 when we had this race for the first and so far only time. Sage Karam led all of the other races, the other laps, but Ryan Otis stayed out a lap longer and led one singular lap throughout the 48-lap race that day.
Ryan Otis, a previous champion of the series, of course, but Sage Karam, the... How do you say it? The most winningest driver in series history? Is that the best way to frame it? Sage Karam,
in America, yeah.
I know exactly. 18 victories in his 38 races. He had what? 5 race wins in a row or something like that at one point. It was pretty remarkable. 2.6 seconds the margin up front, by the way. Very much excited that that could be quite close. After Jim Herrick's spill, he has been deposited into a fight with Andrew Wood, who, after starting at the back, is up to 15th spot.
Yep, he's done fairly well to manage that, and I'm sure there are plenty of stories like that up and down the field. You'll have a bit of work to do here, though, with Herrick on the outside. Braking very late as well, but ends up pulling it up quite early, and will go for the different line through 1 and 2 to try and have a run at 4 maybe, but don't think that's going to happen quite. And it's going to get very, very busy on the exit of this chicane now as everybody's getting involved.
I think that's David Rodriguez, isn't it? Because he's got David Sirois with him as well. No. Sirois going to get caught up in that with Jim Herrick, who got tangled up through turn 5 and 6. It's a fast chicane. It's so difficult to negotiate with traffic at times, and it ends badly for Jim Herrick.
And could end badly for Sirois as well, although he's actually got quite a big gap behind him, hasn't he? So he might well be all right in 6th place, but not ideal for anybody there. This was the view from Sirois as there was battling going on in front of him. He's actually caused that himself, hasn't he? So
you say he's caused that himself. I will offer a slightly different counterpart. And let's just listen in initially, by the way, here first. Listen in with Herrick. He is throttled off there. Now, I can appreciate why. I just want to finish. I can appreciate why, but he's asking for trouble when David Sirois coming in a fight of his own as well. I'm not saying Sirois shouldn't have lifted, but that's not a place that I want to be in.
You surprised me with that opinion, actually. I didn't think you were going to go that way at all. But
did you?
There we are. Yeah, I thought you were. Yeah.
Oh, because you know that I do not like it when faster cars murder traffic.
Yeah, you don't like people getting run over like that, so I thought, yeah.
I also don't like it when sometimes things happen in traffic that aren't always the faster car's fault. I'm not saying it was the slower car's fault here. It's just that is one of the unfortunate things that the fast chicane offers, presents, that the double hairpins did not.
Yes, certainly, but I think Sirois could have avoided that, although I wouldn't penalise him, to be honest, because nothing's really happened in it for either of them that's particularly detrimental, I wouldn't say. So, you know, it's not race changing in the end. No. But yeah, I think it was necessary, wasn't it, for Herrick to just lift off there because he was on such a narrow line going towards the chicane. You really don't want to hit that big curb through the second part of this. So you notice them avoiding it really quite a lot. But if Herrick hadn't have lifted off there, he wouldn't have been able to avoid it. So he had to, and in the end got run over completely. So yeah, I wouldn't blame him.
So Phil Kraus, by the way, still 2.6 seconds clear at the front of the field. I agree with what Mark Cohn's saying right now. Just one of those miscommunications where I appreciate why Herrick lifted. He was not making the corner if he did not lift. That's the unfortunate thing. But David Sirar's also thinking, oh, I've got to go for the car in front. Target fixation is something that happens to the best of us. Across the line, it will be 7 to go. Without that mistake, let's be real, Sean Campbell's in the draft right now.
He's going to be coming into view, and once again, I go back to that mistake he made in towards turn 1. If he hadn't have had that supposed misshift, then what would have happened here? I just think he broke too late and made a mistake, in all honesty. But in the end, I wasn't so sure about the tyre call at the start, but at the end of this race, it's looking better and better for that tyre call, and Kraus is hanging on at the end of this race rather than powering to victory.
What are those track temperatures right now, if you're curious? Back up to 51. It's only gotten warmer.
Well, it's 10 to 2 in the afternoon as far as the sim is concerned, so I'm not surprised. 28 degrees Celsius, nice day. A little bit too hot for some, but hey, you can get a nice tan there. That's all right. Yeah, it's not particularly comfortable temperatures for these tyres on the most part.
Now, let me ask you a question, though, Ewan. Do you think that this new version of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is shorter or longer than the version that Formula One used to visit?
Oh, shorter, I'm going to go for.
Yeah?
Because, am I all right?
Well, explain your justification first before I explain yes or no.
Because the shortcut you make from the long left-hander is... okay, how do I explain this? The long left-hander that they bypass is is longer than the new chicane that we have added these days.
You're right.
Thank you.
Do you know how right
the rest
you
of it's
are?
the same. No, oh no, I wouldn't be able to give you meters and
Actually,
stuff.
Actually, it's not identical, because the chicane is slightly different at the end of the back straightaway after turn 7.
Yeah, that's minimal, that, isn't it?
Kind of. Turn 7 itself slightly reprofiled because of the curb that's there, but yes, for the most part, you are right. About 2.6 miles was the original road course layout. 2.5 a little bit later when they rejigged the middle part of the track. The current road course, 2.4 miles. So yes, it is shorter. Congratulations. Would you like a cookie?
I'll take one. No, I sort of based it as well on the lap times that we were doing here, and thinking back to other lap times of the past or whatever from Formula One cars or whatever, and thinking, these times are quite low even for these cars to have around here. So I'm somewhat basing it off of that as well, but a little bit of guesswork as well. I'm not entirely with you though on which configuration is better. I really can't decide.
Oh no, trust me. The slow hairpins at the start were about as awful as you could get. The one thing that I will give credit to them about this facility, Ewan, is that when they wanted to bring IndyCar back here for a road course, they didn't just say, let's bring... I don't want to throw Herman Tilke under the bus, but I will. They didn't say, let's bring Herman Tilke here. They went to the drivers and said, come and tell us what you would want. And so that's why that final chicane got added.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on either layout, just to put it out there.
You just don't like Rovals, and I mean, you're not entirely wrong with that.
Not driving them, though, and I don't think this one makes up for it in terms of the racing either. Personally, obviously the oval is a different story, but I almost count them as different facilities sometimes because they're just so different. We don't even drive down the straight in the right way. It's so backwards that
motorbikes did though.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's bizarre.
It's so different that it's almost hard to comprehend that they are in the same location sometimes.
Okay, so you don't want to do road racing here. I'll give you a couple of different things that we could maybe do then as we come to 4 laps to go. The gap under 2 seconds, and I will just remind everyone that's Sean Campbell's mistake. We have a fight here for the race lead. I'm throwing him under the bus quite a lot right now, just to be clear. So you don't want to race around here in cars. Why don't we run around here? What do you think about that?
Run?
Yes, Porsche, when I was there with them last year, they hosted at night what was a team relay race. So you had like 3 or 4 people on your team, and you just basically ran one person at a time for as long as you could. It was great, amazing.
You just upped the stakes there. You just said run, and then I was like, all right, and then you said race. And I'm like, oh, good
yes,
Lord.
true. It's still a race.
That's a lot of pressure. Team race as well. It gets worse. So yeah, that doesn't sound like fun. But I would run the length of this circuit. I can just about manage that. I think I'm fit enough.
What
maybe.
Maybe. At least you don't have to worry about the banking as high as Daytona, because that would be a lot. That's a different story, right? Okay, so you're up for running. How about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway hosted 3 years of Red Bull Air Racing? Are you up for that? Could we get you in an airplane with one of those pilots?
You can barely get me in a commercial aeroplane. I'm not getting in one of those. That's absolutely not happening.
Okay, so we can't get you to do that.
Definitely not.
What else could... they held the Pan American Speed Roller Skating competition here in 1997.
Well, I can't do that, but I'd give it a go.
We can make you give it a go. There is also a dirt track in the infield, by the way. We'll kind of see it, I think, as we head here out of Turn 5. It's just off somewhere around here. Don't know if we're going to be able to see it, actually. No, not with the camera angles. But there's so much that you can do here. Best track in the world.
Oh dear, there's a conversation. Yeah, I mean it's a great facility, isn't it? And I've said this many times before, that the fact that you can get so many people to come here and watch its main race, of course, is, I think, absolutely fantastic. And I would commend that in any sport, but for motorsport to be able to do that is fantastic. So yeah, as a facility as a whole, yeah, it's not a bad one. I'd cycle around here, by the way, because it's absolutely flat as you like. So that's ideal.
I do some cycling around here as well. I will say there is something special about just being here and being one of the 350,000 people. Big snap there from Phil Krause again. 2 laps to go, and the gap now underneath 1.5 seconds. We can keep talking about what we'd like to do at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but finally, with traffic to play a potential factor, is Phil Krause going to have to fight with Sean Campbell on these final 2 laps of the race? One driver says, see ya, I'm going straight at turn number 1. I want no part of this.
Well, that could have also been quite disconcerting for Krause, because if he was modelling his braking zone based on that driver in front and getting a bit of tunnel vision there, then he could have seen himself going wide as well. But he didn't get himself into that trap, and so carries on, but he might find himself in some trouble with this lap car of Guyon just up in front, I think it is, and 10th place overall in this race. He won't be slow.
Is he going to want to fight to stay on the lead? That is the question. He's 5 seconds off the back of Chris Fowler. Is Phil Krause going to be wanting the tow? Is he going to be content to sit behind? The real problem is that as much as we keep talking about how this final sector is a passing opportunity, it's a tight final couple of corners. There's not really 2 lines to be run. And so even though Sean Campbell will be nigh on 1 second off of the race lead, coming to the final lap of the Gomez Sim Industries Grand Prix of Indianapolis presented by Next Level Racing, is he running out of time? David Sirois is pulling to the side. Phil Krause has some clean air.
I think he is going to run out of time here, Sean Campbell. This race is going to be about 5 miles too short for him, I think. By the end of this, he's just at 1.5 seconds away. The lap car will get out of the way, and he absolutely has to hammer this final lap, but there's probably less than a minute remaining of this race, and with more than a second to catch, this is mission impossible, surely, for Sean Campbell. He's got to be kicking himself for that mistake earlier on. I know he'll deny it, but he must be.
I was going to bring this up very quickly at the end, Ewan. Is he going to be happy that he's just got a second and all the points that comes with that, even if this is a race where he may not have had the pace wheel to wheel to challenge Phil Krause?
Yeah, but he had the better strategy and he had the chance to win this one. I'm absolutely sure he would have won as well without that problem, because Krause is hanging on at the end of this race. It's not a dominant display and the dominant drive, as the record seats will show. It's been a nervous, nail-biting finish.
It's another one, though, to continue the streak of bin it or win it if you're Phil Krause. The team talent number 4 comes across the line to take win number 4 of the season in the Gomez Sim Industry Grand Prix of Indianapolis. It bodes well as we'll return here in 7 days' time to tackle the second Triple Crown the butt kicker Indy 250. Sean Campbell will grab second. I will bring up with Campbell in the post-race show without a shadow of a doubt whether he's content with the second place finish. And then it's a long wait before we see Mike Razmas grab the final step of the podium in his quest to regain the championship. Does exactly what he needs to do. Climbs up 3 positions, holds off Matt Taylor, his championship rival from 2022.
Taylor was really chasing him down there, by the way, so that was impressive to see, but couldn't quite get there onto the podium. Only 9 cars on the lead lap. Fowler just about staying on it, and that gives us half of what we had in Season 4. That's Forsyth having a problem at the final turn.
I just saw smoke. I didn't see much else, I'll be honest.
A spin, I'd imagine. I think it was a battle, wasn't it, with Wood, maybe?
Woodeth, yes. No, I think you're right. As Forsyth's going to head to pit lane. Here's a look at the replay.
Oh no, it's on his own. By the looks of it, just gets over that bump, doesn't he, and locks the car up. Smoke screen for everybody behind. And I think not only Wood gets through, but Alexander gets through as well into 15th place.
Just another look at it. Really pushing to the limits, and Andrew Wood does lock the right front initially, and then I think a drag race to the line that Andrew Wood won, fortunately, with some other contenders as well. Fun little race there, Ewan, as the cars come across the line, and we see Phil Kraus get ready to celebrate in HyperX victory lane.
Yeah, not bad at all. It was a race that had us on the edge of our seats right to the very end, but Phil Kraus just about did enough. It will look like a very dominant one on paper with the amount of laps that he led and the situation he was in, but this will be remembered as a nail-biting finish for Kraus. He didn't dominate here. He got away with it, you could argue, because Campbell, I'm absolutely sure, could have won that race.
And will he be in the same spot, burning it down in HyperX victory lane in 7 days' time for the second of our Triple Crowns? It's a good sign, it's some good momentum as we make our way to the hallowed grounds for the first time this year. Let's run you down through your arena race results, where 7 races, 4 wins, but also 4 top 10s, win or bin if you're Phil Kraus. He holds off Sean Campbell. We'll ask him about the half moment that he had in the second half of the race that saw him drop back and ultimately not be able to really put the challenge to the number 4 machine. 2 rookies at the front, though, in front of the Nezumi Graphics LC contingent. Mike Razmas, defending champion, final step of the podium, in front of Matt Taylor and then in front of David Rodriguez. It's Raven Lavoie Motorsports and David Sirois 6th in front of Christopher Hill, continuing his impressive rookie run. He finishes in front of Valenzuela and Fowler on the lead lap, while Alex Gouillon did indeed get lap on the final lap of the race to complete the top 10. Sam Ryman, Sam Fontaine, 11th and 12th positions for 40 Racewear, Hugo Gallus, and then Andrew Wood, Seb Alexander, who take advantage of Craig Forsyth's slip up through the final corner to grab a position in front of the 53 machine, who is classified 16th, at least in front of his 40 Racewear teammate Jim Herrick. 17th for the 40, while Matt Wagner, Gabe Wood, and Michael O'Brien make up the rest of the top 20 as we begin to get into the used car lot. Richie Hearn, Tyler Graf, final 2 cars, with Tyler Graf unfortunately not making it through the opening lap of the race. That's going to lead us into our post-race coverage, sponsored by Next Level Racing. And so as we wait for Phil Kraus to make his way up towards the broadcast booth, instead it's Mike Razmas, 3rd position, who's getting ready to chat with Ewan O'Leary.
Mike, welcome in. Good to have you here on the podium here for place here tonight at Indianapolis. Just holding off Matt Taylor towards the end of that race. How was that for you overall, holding on, and how was it through the pit stop phase as well when this race was changing so much?
Yeah, that was a really tough race. It kind of looked, I guess, pretty clean, if you looked at my onboard for the most part, but I was hanging on. I knew Matt was faster all week, so I was just hoping to, if I just put in my lap times, I was doing low 17s the whole time, which I'm actually pretty proud of considering my pace in practice and how much slower I was than Matt and them. But yeah, to come out with the podium is great. And just trying to control the balance of the car when the tires heat up and the fuel burns off. It's kind of hard to stay on top of it all, especially when you're racing. I was racing David Rodriguez a lot, and Matt was already lurking behind there. So yeah, just a tough race just to keep it together. And Tough setup too, which was really fun. It's kind of, you just had to, I don't know, just focus and do what you know, focus on the fundamentals of driving the car, and just really happy with P3 for this one.
And of course, the second of the 3 Triple Crown races is coming up just around the corner as well. What do the next 7 days look like in terms of preparing for that? What can you do from this stage, and what are you hoping to get out of the race?
That race is going to be a lot of drafting, so hopefully in practices there will be a bunch of people so you can get some drafting practice in, because it's pretty tough with this car, and you kind of have to, take a long view of everything and just pace yourself in races like that. So yeah, we're gonna hopefully do some drafting practice and see how the car feels on the long runs, and stuff like that just takes time, so you just got to put in the time.
Absolutely. Mike, congratulations on 3rd place here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you in 7 days' time.
Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. Mike Rasmus, 3rd place here at Indianapolis, Arjuna, but you're standing by with 2nd place, Sean Campbell.
Sean Campbell says that he's not sure that he could have won that anyway without that mistake. Sean, talk us through what seemed like a pretty tense race between you and Phil Kraus.
I mean, I don't know. I thought it was pretty calm. It was definitely close. I'm not saying that it wasn't close and it wasn't like it was a race, But I think my main goal was once about we got done with lap 1 and Phil was already like 1.5 seconds clear of us. I just wanted to confirm 2nd place. That's why I took tires. I wasn't entirely sure about the tire wear situation, and it felt a little sketchy for me, so I just took them. We had the gap, and I thought it was safe. I think if I didn't take them, I probably overheated them, which is why it was super sketchy. So I think he would have won that anyway, and then taking tires. You saw me weaving on the when I came out of the pits trying to get heat into them, but I lost a little bit of time with that as well.
That was very punny of you, I will say. I mean, it's been a good consistent start to the season from you in the championship, but we head off to one of those races that some will say is bigger than the championship, over to the oval here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where 3-4 wide is hopefully going to be a little bit more common. How are you feeling heading into this next Triple Crown race of the season?
I'm excited. I've never done this car at the Indy Oval before. I spotted for my teammates last year, and it was a really, really close finish. I remember it was like 5 wide for 2nd or 3rd or whatever it was.
Yep, something like that.
It's very exciting to see that be doable. So hopefully it goes smooth, but we also get some of that.
Hopefully, indeed. You'll be there at the end of that butt kicker Indy 250. Congratulations on another podium, Sean, and we'll see you in 7 days' time.
All right.
Always good to catch up with Sean Campbell, who talks us through the logic behind taking tires, as opposed to Phil Kraus, who gambled on not taking tires and in the end held strong. But Phil, I've got to ask again, win it or bin it, you're in the win it camp once again.
Well, we'll see how long that lasts, Arjuna. If I keep on not taking tires when I probably should have taken tires, I think we'll end up in the bin it camp a few more times.
So what was the tire percentage down to after 48 laps there and track temperatures upwards of 50 degrees Celsius?
My fronts were on about 34. I did a burnout after, so I don't know what the rears were, but they were definitely, like, basing it off the pit stop, they were under 30, so they were killed.
Well, I guess you got good value out of them over the course of the race. How much were you pushing at times? Because we saw some great consistency, continuously punching in fastest laps, including 2 consecutive laps within 1/1000th of each other.
Yeah, the first stint was pretty consistent. The second stint was a little more ropey on the worn tires. I didn't run a full stint on them before the race, so I was like, I know that I messaged you before the race saying, yeah, Michael took tires in one of the practice races, but I'm not sure about it. I wish I had taken the tires like I thought about doing, because I was flip-flopping on it the whole time. The second stint was definitely a lot more ropey, but and a lot less consistent just because the rear would just go sometimes when you weren't expecting it to. Definitely overheated the rears a lot more on the second stint than the first.
Well, you're not going to have to worry about left and right next week. It's just about turning left, but you will have to contend with 3, 4, and potentially 5 wide in the second Triple Crown of 2023. Congratulations on yet another victory, Phil, and we'll see you back here in the Speedway in 7 days' time.
Yeah, cheers, Regina. Have a good night.
Always good to chat to our winner in HyperX Victory Lane, and always good to cycle through the podium winners, podium sitters, I should say, in the Next Level Racing post-race show. And boy, am I excited about this one, because it's not always that you get to commentate on races on the very special oval. It's not often, Ewan, that you get to commentate on races where you're expecting to get to the end and you're expecting 3, 4, 5 wide, and potentially the closest finish of the year, if not maybe the entire series.
Absolutely, we've seen very many close finishes down the years at this race, the bookkeeper Indy 250, and it will be fantastic to see it on the calendar once again. I think the fact that this is only 7 days after this race, the Grand Prix of Indianapolis as well, makes it very, very exciting, because you kind of get that build-up of excitement over the course of, obviously, the weeks in real life. We're doing a little bit after here in the Lionheart Retro Series, but you still have that same excitement build-up over the course of time, and everyone will be greatly looking forward to this one now with only 7 days to go.
Absolutely. Again, coverage begins around 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, so do join us on RaceSpotTV and live on Arena TV. Let's grab a quick look at the Next Level Racing schedule before we bow out and say farewell, because we're rapidly approaching the halfway mark of this 22-round 2023 Lionheart Retro Series, and a season that is going to stretch into 2024 as we cross calendars for the very first time. But looking at that second half of the season, Ewan, I look at the first half and I say, okay, there wasn't necessarily much new. A lot of this is familiar grounds, with maybe the exception of Fuji and Indy Road. Up in the back half, there's some more wild cars out there, and some road courses that are going to terrify some.
Absolutely, some road courses not located in the United States, which is a little bit unusual for the most part of this schedule. Phillip Island to come at the end of September. We've got Imola at the start of November as well. But overall, just quite a few road courses in there, which will certainly scare a few. But some other maybe ovals that people aren't expecting and that they might find very difficult. I think the finale at Auto Club, though, is going to be very, very exciting. If there's a championship on the line there, then my goodness, we're going to have a show. Yeah,
that is always the one that we are hopefully expecting some fireworks at, not just at the checkered flag guaranteed by iRacing, but remember, 2021 tied on points, did not know who won the championship until we went back and count back, and boy, was it confusing. Don't forget that even though we return 7 days from today for the Lionheart Retro Series, the Lionheart Sports Car Series, back in action next Monday as we make our way on over to what is bound to be an exciting trip to the Circuit de la Sarre. Join us for the BMW Performance Center Grand Prix of Le Mans live this coming Monday. We'll return to the Speedway for the butt kicker Indy 250 for the second Triple Crown of the season. A race maybe bigger than the championship. Here, though, in the Gomez Sim Industry Grand Prix of Indianapolis presented by Next Level Racing, it's Phil Kraus that walks away on top. For the team at RaceSpotTV, alongside me, Ewan O'Leary, joining myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for your company. We'll see you in 7 days' time to put them 4-5 wide around the Speedway.